Hi, we are here today with Judith Granahan. Welcome, Judy.
Hello.
And Judy is the author of one book that's published and a second one that's coming out. Yes. So, Judy, tell us about your first book.
It's called Dancers of the Third Age. You know, when you write, you can do things to people that you might like to do, but you haven't had a chance. So
that's why so many of us write.
Yes, yes. So I took three women in their 60s, and they don't like each other. They didn't know each other very well at all. But then they got...
You have to tell us how they met.
They, you know what? I forget.
You forgot where they met?
Yes.
The bordello.
Ah, yes. Well,
it's been a while since you wrote that book.
It was called a bordello, tongue-in-cheek, because the woman that bought the building converted it into a place for women in their 60s to live, and she thought it would be great to just call it the bordello instead of senior living. So
something a little more unique.
Yes, and so that's where they met, and as things progressed, they had a problem they had to solve. One husband had been quite brutal to her, and she walked away from her children. So it was very important for her to go back and reconnect, but she didn't dare. So these two new people that she met said, "No, you got to do it. So we're gonna go. We'll help you." And we're gonna. And where are they? Well, the daughter lives in Sedona, and the son lives there. So they head off to Sedona, and you'll have to read the book to find out how things go. But there's difficulties along the way, but her two friends encouraging her to take the leap and see if her children did want to have them have her in their lives, because she was convinced they would be very resentful.
Right, and it had been, what, decades since she had seen them? 30 years?
Yeah,
more than that?
Yes.
More than that? Okay.
Than that.
Right, and they have some adventures along the way.
Yes, they do get in a little trouble. I mean, why take a trip if there's nothing going to happen?
Right, it's not a story. If we got in the car and we went and it all worked out.
It all worked out, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your background and how long you've been writing.
A friend of mine who was a stand-up comedian said, "I have a friend who's teaching writing, and you keep talking about it. I think you should go to her class." And I thought, no, she might be terrible. I don't want to ruin his friendship. But he was very persistent, and so I went, and it was a great fun class. We would meet on Monday, read what we had read, and get critique from her from what we had given her the week before. But every week we'd have a new assignment, so we could try different things. And so it just got to be fun, but not enough. So I thought, just put all that effort into a page. So I just thought, okay, I'll see what I can do. And I think when you step into that world, your other world goes away.
It does.
And
I agree.
You can go places, do things that you would never have a chance to do or never be willing to do. So it just grabbed me. It was sort of like cocaine that grabbed me.
Except cheaper and a little more legal.
And yes.
No jail sentences.
No.
Tell us about your second book, because that really takes you some places you wouldn't normally go.
Yes. It's about a woman who is out for revenge. It's called See That House. And she was raped at 15 and made pregnant, and vowed at that time that she would someday make that person pay for it. And she took all those years because she wanted her son, who was born from the rape, to be part of the revenge. She did not give any thought to what it might do to her son. And so they proceeded with a very clever way to take this and make it happen. But of course life isn't smooth.
No.
So I threw a few things
never go according to plan.
And because, you know, a 5-page book isn't long enough, so I put in other things. But it's all very realistic, and a few other people get caught up in this too. But in the end, you'll have to read it, but there's consequences to doing bad things. There's also consequences to trying to do bad things to other people because they deserve it, which most revenge is.
Right.
So what I learned in the writing it is revenge is very complicated.
Right, and usually not worth the effort. I think it rarely turns out as people think. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It doesn't turn out like people think. They don't get the sense of satisfaction. Now, I'm curious, is there anything that inspired these two books, either of them? Or did they just sort of come out of your imagination?
One in particular, you hear so much about women being beaten. And I've always been so surprised in my head as to why they stay there. So that was kind of what I thought I would explore, but I didn't. But it was, women have a hard time. My father beat my mother, and it was looking at that, and I thought, no, I need to write about it, and I need to explore it. If it never becomes a book, at least I'm exploring it for myself.
Right.
And
I think there's a lot of that in writing. I know I've written some things that I think, am I writing a story or am I saving myself the therapy bills?
That's why I've never been interested in writing nonfiction. Because
too close to the truth, huh?
Yes. And,
yeah, in fiction we cover it up well. Yes, do you have a favorite character in either of these books?
Well, I try not to do that, but
like having a favorite child, right?
Yes. Because each person contributes something, whether it's help or hindrance. If I don't like them, maybe the reader won't. So I need to use every opportunity to flesh everything out.
Right. Do you feel that you put a lot of yourself in these characters, or more of yourself in some of them?
Yeah, I would have the character do something and go, oh, I don't think that makes sense, or that person would do that. I wouldn't. Or, boy, I wish I could do that. Maybe I'm going to write about it. So, yeah.
And that leads to some interesting conversations in Night Riders, because sometimes one person will say, I would never do that, and somebody else will go, but that's the first thing I would do.
Yes.
Or if you had the character of that person who's, I don't know, a little more aggressive or a little more shy or whatever, they might point out maybe you wouldn't, but somebody else would. It does lead to interesting discussions.
Well, I think that's one of the things I would like to stretch the reader. If I'm just doing ordinary things with my people, it's boring. So, yeah, I try pushing.
Yeah, and I think it does bring out to readers, I think that's part of why we read, is we're learning a lot by looking at somebody else's life and going, oh, maybe that's why so-and-so would do that. So your books, would you say that they say write what you know? Do you think that your books are based largely or partly on your experience? I mean, I know you haven't, gone out for revenge against anyone. I know that's not you.
And I haven't had these things happen to me, but you see it everywhere. It's in the news. You talk to friends who are trying to hide it, or it's there. If you don't know about it, then you must be sitting in a room with the lights off and the TV not on.
Yeah, and so a lot of what you're doing depends on research. What kind of research have you done? Have you dug into factual stories, news articles? Have you visited these locations?
I'm trying to hide the location because the fact that it does deal with sex trafficking, which occurs all over the country, so I don't want to say, here's this part. Now
that's for See That House. And what about Dancers of the Third Age?
That's in Sedona. I put it there because I love it. It's beautiful. So it was scenery that I could use. And since these women are in their 60s, there's a lot of 60-year-old women in Sedona. So it just felt right to drop them in there.
So that's what you're working on now, is See That House, and when do you expect that to be out?
It's time for it to be converted into a book.
Okay, so it's near.
And I have to write the teasing blurb that you put on the back of the book to make people want to read it. So our group, which I dearly love, is having a book showing on November 3rd this year, and it will be ready by then.
Fantastic.
And
that's coming up fast.
Yeah, well, yes. When you sit down at the computer and go, it's coming up fast. Yes.
Okay, so here is, putting you on the spot. Do you have a quote, an idea, an experience, something like that has inspired you the most in life?
Well, I was divorced, and I still had 2 small children. I had 2 grown ones and 2 smaller ones. And I was going to the university to get my nursing degree, and I was driving home one day, and I had a very difficult biology class, and I said, Lord, and I didn't usually pray, Lord, just tell me if I can do this, if I can do it. And the answer came back loud and clear. If I told you you could do it, you wouldn't try as hard, and then you'd fail.
Wonderful. That's an amazing story.
That has always stuck with me. You have this problem or thing to deal with, do it. Deal with it. And that is, and so when this little nasty little thing about writing came up, and okay, deal with it, do it.
Right, do it. And it can be very hard.
Yeah,
I mean, I find the editing incredibly hard. What do you think is the most important thing to live life well?
Oh, I was just looking in the back of the first book, and there's a whole page of it.
It's like you were ready for that question.
I didn't write it. I stole it from various places. But it's like it's said over and over again. If you give, you get. You give anger, you get it. If you give love and help, you get it. Confidence in something, whether it's yourself, your family, a God. Because I've seen people who haven't had any confidence, and they've taken and turned into a sad life that could have been beautiful. To me, that's a terrible thing. But that has to happen at times.
Yep.
And humans are this range of everything. And so you're going to see everything.
Yep.
So hopefully you're in the range of being able to do life well.
Where can readers find you online?
And Amazon.
Okay. Under Judy Granahan.
Judith Granahan.
Judith Granahan, Dancers of the Third Age.
Yes.
And very soon to come, See That House.
Yes.
Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.